from the logo and gets the 3 to fall. That puts LA up by 2. 2 minutes left in the third quarter now. Thunder trailing 96-90. Monica, this is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander making a defender stumble and hitting the step-back 3.
A.K.A. just a Wednesday.
Just under 8 minutes to go in the fourth. Now Lakers down by 1. Doncic sinks the floater for the lead, but watch how he turns around and says some words in the directions of the ref, which the ref does not like. That's Luka's second technical foul of the night, which means he is ejected.
Bye-bye.
Can't believe it. Says he was talking to a fan. But his pleas fall on deaf ears. He is tossed, and the Lakers fell apart after that. Just over 6 minutes to play in the fourth quarter. Thunder now leading 114-112. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander again from deep, extending the lead to 5.
He would go on, Gross, to have his 13th 40-point game of the season.
42 points, 6 rebounds. Oklahoma City wins. Here's Luka after the game.
Yeah, I mean, you can see it that happened, but you know, I never got a fan ejected, never. But if he's gonna talk, I'm gonna talk back like always. So that had nothing to do with the ref. So I didn't really understand. I mean, it was tough. I mean, we were right there. I think we fought the whole game. You know, we were down 8 at halftime. We came back in the third quarter. We were fighting, man. So it was tough to see that. With this kind of situation that happened, and you know, that's on me too, so I can't let my team down like that.
All right, lots to get into here, but Wendy, I want to start with this. The ejection, I mean, was it unfair?
Yes, it was unfair. It seems that Luka, it doesn't look like there's even contact on the play. So I believe Luka that he's not reacting to the official, that he is talking to the fan. He talks to the fan all the time. However, he bears responsibility for this for 2 reasons. One, he already had a technical foul in the game for yelling at this same official. And so, you know, if you put yourself in position, you earn being on the line like that. The second thing is he's got a long history, very, 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 very long history of screaming at refs. And so, therefore, he pays for his reputation here. It is not fair. It definitely probably decided the outcome of this game or heavily contributed to it. And we'll see how it affects his mood going into a very emotional game tonight in Dallas.
Monica, what do you think?
I agree, and I appreciate Luka at the end of his comments, Graz, acknowledging his role in all of this. Interesting wrinkle, though, Wendy, because I didn't know that the tech was for yelling at that same official. Then you really got to be on your P's and Q's. Look, Luka is someone who we've seen have conversations back and forth with fans over the course of his career, but he's got to understand the magnitude of these games. There's not much to say about this. I think he gets it. Hopefully this is a lesson learned. It's like when you touch the stove and you get a good burn. That burn is there. Hope he does not forget this moment, because every game down the stretch is absolutely critical.
But wasn't this... Right, I was going to say, Wendy, wasn't this the issue last year in the finals? I mean, didn't this cost them against Boston last year? I mean, this is not a new problem for this guy.
Yes, I think very clearly there was a miscarriage of justice here. The referee, the crew chief, did speak to a reporter after the game. It wasn't that official. It was the crew chief, Tony Brothers, who said that the technical was for yelling at the official. I believe, Luka, that he wasn't yelling at the official, but he has so much baggage when it comes to dealing with officials, he doesn't get the benefit of the doubt. And that is going to be true throughout probably the rest of his career and certainly into the playoffs this year. So my suggestion to him, as has been many people's suggestion to him, is to back off the officials and focus on the game. But despite suffering consequences of that for most of his adult life, he does not seem to change, and so he will continue to run into these situations unless he does.
Well, fortunately, tonight's game's in Dallas, so there won't be like any extra emotion or anything like that. But seriously, that's a pretty big game for the Lakers after losing last night, right?
Yeah, I mean, the standings, what is it, 3 through 8 are separated by a game. So yes, here's the thing. I am not going to act as if Luka is not without room to grow and improve. But I do think that when we talk about his flaws, you also got to remember who he is and who he's been to the league. An MVP guy, took his team to the finals. Like, he is excellent, right? And that, to me, is a solve for some of the things that you would like to see him grow up in. This, to me, we've been talking about his defense, we've been talking about his antics. I think he has an opportunity to really make some real headway as far as improving those things as a Laker. And tonight's game, every game matters. Like, there's not much to say about that. It just happens to be that it's a return to Dallas to add that extra emotional energy, but every game matters for this Lakers squad. So I expect the Lakers to come out with a win, and I expect Luka to play well. Yeah,
maybe a good opportunity if you're looking for a way to teach yourself how to keep your emotions in check. Maybe tonight in Dallas is a good I got to talk about something that's not game-related, though, because the shocking news in the NBA yesterday was the Denver Nuggets firing head coach Michael Malone and general manager Calvin Booth. Move comes with Denver sitting in 4th place in the West with just 3 games left in the regular season. Malone's firing also coming just 2 years after he led the team to a championship. Assistant David Adelman will take over as the team's interim head coach. Our friend C.J. McCollum, who is the president of the NBA Players Association, said this on social media. This league out of pocket, man. WTH going on. Firing good coaches right before the playoffs is nasty work. Wendy, I heard this news yesterday, and I thought, why? Why?
Well, this is a very unique one that you're ever going to see in the modern era of the NBA. The answer to the why was somewhat explained by the Nuggets governor, Josh Kroenke, yesterday in an interview he gave to the team media, when he said that he believes that some winning this season is masking some problems. And so what I took that to mean is that he thought if the Nuggets would have some playoff success, that it would mask the issues. And I think he wanted to fire Michael Malone now when he basically could. Because if they go into the playoffs and Jokic carries them, he didn't think it was the right direction for the team. He even referenced that he was considering this earlier in the year, and then the Nuggets had an 8-game win streak. And I think he was thinking about doing it earlier. Now, if your retort to that is, why do you take a coach who is the winningest coach in franchise history, who has been your coach for 10 years, the only coach Nikola Jokic has ever known, and why do you do this and not give him this playoffs? Now, that is a fair question, and I don't have a good answer for that. But it seems to me that the ownership didn't want Michael Malone to wiggle out of this by having a good postseason run. They decided he was fired no matter what, and so they fired him. It is unorthodox, but it is a move that ownership is making. And I will just say that the Kroenke family that owns the Nuggets, they own teams across the world. They own the Rams, they own the Avalanche, they own Arsenal, they own other teams. They have a long history of being patient with their coaches. This is out of character for them. So you know that their feelings had to be acute on this. When it comes to Calvin Booth, the general manager has less of an impact at this stage of the season. His contract was also up. They had discussions since last summer. We're not able to get a contract extension. The fact that he is leaving is not a shocker. The fact that they would do it in conjunction with this now, very, very unusual. So the Nuggets essentially, I know that in the standings it looks like they're in 5th. Really, when you break the tiebreakers down, they're in the play-in right now. They faced must-win games starting tonight in Sacramento, who's fighting for its own playoff positioning. We'll see how the team reacts to this traumatic event at this point in the season.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much about this that's just sort of baffling. I mean, you're talking about they didn't want to put him in a position where he won a bunch of playoff games and saved his job. Does that mean, like, if you're Denver's ownership, you don't want to win a bunch of playoff games this year, or you think this gives you a better chance to do it?
So, I think they want to win them without having to give Malone credit. Right. That was my interpretation of what the owner said yesterday.
So, obviously, Wendy, our intrepid reporter, on the ground, insider, from afar, you looked at this and you go, to me, this was my first thought, this cannot happen in today's NBA, to me, if Nikola Jokic says, don't do this. This was my first thought. I could be inaccurate and it would actually happen, but I think in a league where we are so heavily driven by stars, you may not have said yes, but I don't think that there was clearly any resistance to this. And so, to me, this was very much about Kroenke's relationship with his stars, because Jokic is not 30 yet, I believe. So they still have runway to continue to be a championship caliber organization. And this is very much about making sure that the team has the best fit. I also will add, think about a startup company. When a CEO builds up a startup company and then they sell it off. When you have the coach in place that gets everything out of the squad to get to the mountaintop, to win a championship, it is certainly fathomable that eventually that voice begins to get a little stale after you have squeezed everything you can out of this product. And so in the arc of an NBA life, it's certainly odd at this time of the year, but I think we've seen it. We've seen championship coaches be moved on from their past programs. And if you look at what Sacramento happened to them earlier this year, when Doug Christie took over, they did go 10 of 12 over their next dozen games. And so I wonder if Adelman has the chance to sort of bring the elite assistant that everybody loves bump into this moment as far as the playoffs are concerned.
Maybe they get a little bounce. But, Wendy, to the earlier point, what does this move tell you about Nikola Jokic and where things stand with him and the team?
Well, this is an extremely nuanced situation when you have a firing with a star like this. The difference between the star having influence and the star being able to stop it are two totally different things. So do I think that Nikola Jokic found out about this when Shams tweeted? No. I think he absolutely knew it was coming. Does that mean that he bears responsibility? No. So I think those two things have to be taken apart. And I see this with social media with fans. Often it's not. But in the bigger picture, Graz, Nikola Jokic is in his prime. This is a team that was a championship team 2 years ago. Right now, they're looking like they could be in the play-in. That is not the direction that you want to be going with a player like Nikola Jokic. He has never done anything but show loyalty to Denver, but he's never faced a drama situation like this in the organization. So now they have to execute something during the season. They have to execute a coaching hire, and they have to execute a general manager hire that will optimize Nikola Jokic's prime. And that means that the Nuggets